Such a sad day, isn't it?
I mean, devastating, Jesse. You know, I think the entire country feels the pain of this. We're all heartbroken. And I'll tell you, for those of us in the Trump family, I don't think we realized truly how raw what happened on July 13th of last year still kind of was for all of us. I can tell you, when I heard this news, I felt almost the exact same way as I did in the moments after we saw my father-in-law get shot on stage in Butler.
This isn't going to be about the Kirk shooting itself. I mean, I think everybody is anti the shooting. They would say it's wrong. I don't think anybody's going to comment on it and say it was a good thing. What I am going to show you here is how events like this can be used alongside with propaganda to push narratives. And I'm going to explain the scam that they use in these coverages at the end of the video and really give you an idea of why they work and how these people orchestrate them.
It's devastating, obviously, because we lost a great human being in Charlie Kirk. But I think it's also devastating because, to your point in your intro, if we are not able to have conversations about the hard topics in America, if we aren't able to freely speak our mind, then what kind of country are we at the end of the day? Can we even call ourselves the United States of America?
This is a weird one because these people tend to be anti-conversation and open to other people's ideas. This isn't a group of people who are like, oh, let's let everybody live their own lives and do their own things. These are people who historically always want to tell people what to do or think and what is right and what is wrong. And so that's misleading.
Again, anymore. Charlie Kirk, I think all of us in our family have known for almost a decade. This was a person who was bold and brave and unafraid to speak his mind. I went with Charlie to my alma mater one time, NC State, and we were holding a kind of a debate there with the student body. And before we even arrived, they made it very clear they were going to protest us being on campus. And Charlie called me and he said, listen, I'm in if you're in, but if you feel uncomfortable about doing this, I understand. I'll do it myself. We went through with it. We had a great event there, and he truly changed this country. He gave people strength and spirit and encouragement. And as a former RNC co-chair, I can tell you the movement he made with young Americans to be more conservative, to lean more right, to be bold and brave in their values and convictions and speak loudly about them. I don't think it can be overstated. I don't know that Donald Trump would be president right now without Charlie Kirk.
I would agree with what she said so far. He was a right-wing evangelist. He did travel the country specifically trying to convert children into conservatives. I think children are typically born liberal, like a little kid is going to share his food with another little kid. Little kids don't tend to be racist or sexist. So I do think you kind of have to push conservatism on, and it was his job to go around specifically to kids and try to convert them from liberalism to conservatism. And there is probably some truth that he did play a part in helping Trump get elected. So all of that's probably fairly accurate.
And so my heart goes out to his wife, Erica, his young children, his family. We in the Trump family know this feeling, except it turned out the right way for us, and obviously devastatingly did not for Charlie.
Now, it's definitely okay that she says our hearts go out to his children and wife and blah, 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 except for the fact that I watch a lot of this right-wing coverage, and they're constantly showing pictures of him with his children. And even in my field, I really think children should be off limits. Like, it grosses me out when people use children to push an agenda. In the same way you shouldn't be allowed to make fun of someone's children, you shouldn't be able to use them to try to pump that person up either. And, it's just gross. It rubs me the wrong way. And they're specifically being told to throw pictures of his children up to try to invoke some type of feeling in you, and you're using children for that, and it's disgusting. The other thing is her comparing this to the Trump attack, which is just terrible because this guy was shot and killed. Trump wasn't even shot with a bullet. He was just shot at. And it's kind of like if a war hero came back and was missing a leg and he told his story and you tried to one up him by saying, oh, I was a National Guard and I stubbed my toe one time. So we're basically the same type of person. That's just gross.
So unfortunately, we have to say that this assassin is still at large. Kash Patel just announced the subject in custody has been released after an interrogation by law enforcement. Our investigation continues and will continue to release information in the interest of transparency.
Now, scam groups love this kind of thing while the person is still at large, because what they can do while the person is still at large is spread false information. And that's what they were doing. They were spreading on right-wing groups and right-wing coverage that the person was trans, that the person was non-white, that the person was a liberal. They didn't know any of these things. They did know at the time that it was probably a white dude and probably a straight guy. So they were purposely trying to, and they love it because they're like, well, we can say that because we didn't know. But black universities were getting bomb threats. LGBTQ people were getting death threats because they were pushing along the narrative that this attacker was a trans person or a gay person or a left-leaning evangelist or something. And the whole point of it was just to mislead their audience into believing something that wasn't true.
The FBI's got a tough job ahead. Just looking at the geography of this campus, this person could be anywhere. It's surrounded by mountains, highways, airports. It's tough. We expect them to apprehend this person, and they should serve the ultimate price, which is the electric chair or firing squad, which is an option.
Now, I watched a ton of right-wing coverage on this topic, and it's very disingenuous. They all say, are they saying the same thing? Like every single one I watched like 30 of them. And they all said, not only should this guy be killed, but he should be shot with a firing squad. And they brought up that is an option. Like, so they all have this talking point of shooting this guy. And it's disingenuous to be saying, oh my God, I feel so bad for this guy who was shot and killed and his family and blah, 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 blah. And then in the same breath say, we should shoot and kill this other guy. Who cares about his family and blah, 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 blah. Killing the guy isn't going to bring Kirk back. It's not going to do anything other than make these people happy because for some reason they get excited about the thought of someone dying. I don't share that type of mindset, but I know this type of mindset. The idea of someone being killed is exciting to them, and they just keep talking about basically how excited they would be if this guy gets caught and killed. But let's say and this is the dangerous part. They caught 2 people before this and then let them go because it wasn't the right person. So imagine this mindset of let's kill this guy. And then you go around just shooting people who were purposely innocent.
In the state of Utah. Lara, the feeling that your family had, I think everybody in the country felt that way. I've never received more text messages since Butler than I have today from friends and family across the nation. That tells you a lot about Charlie Kirk.
Yeah,
No, it doesn't tell you anything about Charlie Kirk. It tells us something about you. If my favorite football team wins a game and my friends and family all message me because they saw that the team that I love won, that says that my friends know that I like that team. It doesn't say that the team is great. Certainly, Kirk was probably more disliked than liked. I mean, his whole agenda was talking against personal freedoms, personal liberties, and by and large, the United States values liberty and freedom. So even though certainly there were people who really liked the guy, there were probably a much greater population of people who would have disagreed with him and disliked his messaging. So to say that like people reached out to him when this happened shows how great of a man that guy was. Is just, it doesn't make any sense at all.
I've heard other people, who were on Fox programming before your show talk about the fact that they thought that Charlie could have been president one day. I don't think that's an overstatement at all. I think a lot of us looked at him in that way. This is a person who changed the country. You know, in a lot of ways, you can say Charlie Kirk changed the world. He touched so many different people. But I'll tell you one thing. You know, last week, I heard Joy Reid talk about the assassination attempt on my father-in-law, in which one person, Jesse, died. Corey Comparator lost his life that day in Butler. And she seemed to question whether or not it was actually real.
This is particularly ridiculous and disingenuous because Fox is known for spreading misinformation about things not being real. When there's school shootings, these people will be like, oh, it was totally staged and they were actors. There's lots of tragedies that happen on the left where these people rush out and say that it didn't happen, that it was staged, that it was faked. And now they're going to scream and yell that people are like that someone said it about this situation. You can't be anti it when it happens to you, but pro it when it happens to somebody else. You have to stick to how you feel about something. It's either right to do or wrong to do. You can't go back and forth on it. That doesn't make any sense.
You know, you look at the rhetoric and the, you know, kind of normalizing of political violence out there from the left. And
normalizing political violence from the left, that's absurd. Kirk himself said about shootings that they were acceptable. And right-wingers are always saying anytime there's a school shooting or an assassination, they'll say stuff like, hey, I mean, that's just the price we pay. This is something we should expect to have happen. Trump's quoted saying, you know, these things happen and you should expect them. When has the left ever said that supported shootings, saying that they were fine or that there was nothing wrong with them in any circumstance?
Sadly, I guess it's not surprising to find ourselves in this spot. While Charlie wasn't a politician, we know he fought for conservative values, and that's what he championed day in and day out. When you have the Maxine Waters of the world saying, get up in their faces if you see them at a gasoline station, when you have these people continually beating the drum that conservatives are evil, Donald Trump is evil, what do you expect to happen? It's time to bring down that rhetoric. It's time to stop saying these things that these people know full well is not legitimate, you know?
Well,
this is extremely hypocritical because Kirk himself called for like killing gay people, the extinction of liberals. So his rhetoric, are they saying that his rhetoric he shouldn't be held accountable for his rhetoric, but the left should be held accountable for their rhetoric? That's ridiculous.
So you just had Dowd over at MSNBC, Lara, say that Charlie deserved it. And what did MSNBC do? They just said, oh, yeah, we're sorry. That's it. Still has a job there. He'll probably be on their air later next week.
Yeah, there have to be consequences for these people because obviously
there's a lot to unpack so far here. First off, we keep seeing that she keeps circling back to her father-in-law. And I'm sure that she was told to do this ahead of time. Like, this is supposed to be about Kirk, but I'm sure they were told, hey, get the limelight off of Kirk and push it back onto Trump. Use this somehow to make people feel sorry for Trump or that this was an attack against Trump. That's disgusting. Like, why bring up anybody else? Like, just talk about this. The other thing that they're doing is they keep referring to this shooter as they. They want this. They want to do this to you. These people typically hate pronouns. They hate when a man wants to be called them or they, and then they keep referring to this shooter as them or they. So, but because they want you to think that this is a group of people or a movement or something along those lines. And again, if it is a them and they, it's going to be a white, male, pro-gun, Christian. Why group anybody? Like, just because it is that person doesn't mean that all people like him are a terrible human being. But they're purposely referring to him as they to mislead you. And they're purposely bringing you back around to the Trump assassination attempt because they really want to use this terrible tragedy to somehow bring up some type of, sadness about Trump and poor Trump because he was shot at by these people.
There are consequences to the things that they say. We saw it happen today. It's absolutely devastating. There will never be another person like Charlie Kirk.
Again, why are there consequences for what they say, like the left says? Why don't they say there were consequences for what Charlie said? He was very vocal, spoke out a lot about killing people and hurting people and taking away their rights and freedoms. And they don't think that there should be consequences for what he says. Why is it only people on the left have to be held accountable for what they say, but people on the right don't have to be accountable for what they say? If this was reversed, these people would be saying that he deserved it because he was spreading hate and anger and violence, and then he was met with hate and anger and violence. I mean, you have to read it on both sides.
I feel so grateful that I got to know him as well as I did, that, our family got to spend as much time with Charlie as we did, that he allowed me to come to so many of his turning point events to see the real change, Jesse, that he was making, the way he touched so many young people. You go to those events, I know you've been to them. There are thousands of people. You can't even see the back of those crowds. It was really incredible what one person was able to do. And sadly, he died doing what I believe God put him on this earth to do, which was to spark debate and to talk about the tough things. He gave us all courage to do it. And what an incredible loss, a hole and a void that will never be filled.
Okay, so again, this has nothing to do with the shooting, tragic event. What we're covering here is how people use these type of things to create scams. Like big events are really good to create a scam around. 9/11. Anytime something really tragic happens, it's a lot easier to get people to fall for scams because big events cause more interest, right? This is a classic example of the Balkanization strategy. Not the killing itself, but the propaganda created afterward by right-wing sources. So if you don't know what the Balkanization strategy is, in labor industrial context, the idea was like coal mines would hire workers from different ethnicities, languages, and cultural groups that didn't get along with each other. And because they didn't communicate very well with each other or had pre-existing cultural ethnic tensions, they were less likely to unite into a single union. So the weakened labor made it easier for owners to control wages, conditions, and strikes. So basically, it's a form of divide and rule applied to the workforce. In the USA, people are generally united. We all basically think the exact same things. But certain groups want to divide the people to prevent the people from standing up for themselves. So over the first 48 hours after this event, there was a lot of effort spent to make the people on the right believe the shooter was trans or not white, despite the fact that they knew the shooter was white and probably a straight male. But groups, marketing agencies, social media marketing agencies were specifically told to spread information saying that he was trans or not white or left-wingist or whatever. Right-wing outlets also implied that left-wing coverage was pro-shooter and anti-Kirk, despite every left-wing outlet condemning the attack. And one of the things that conservatives scams will do is tell you not to look at anybody else, right? Like the Bible. You read the Bible and it tells you you're not allowed to read any other Bible. And that's a way of control, right? Like we are going to give you information. You can't go find it anywhere else. So much of what people on the right think that the left is saying, they only think they're saying it because the right is telling them. So right-wing news outlets were telling their right-wing viewers that left-wing coverage was pro-shooter and anti-Kirk. Totally a lie. But they know they're not allowed to go watch left-wing or centrist news organization to see that that's just a flat out lie. So while this was a terrible event, the idea that some people would try to capitalize on this tragedy in an attempt to manipulate certain groups into blaming other groups for the sole purpose of gaining power over both groups is disgusting. There was no divide that happened, only a disgusting attempt to spread misinformation and make one side believe there was division. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoy this type of content, please like and subscribe. If you have any videos or topics that you'd like me to take a look at, please leave them in the comments below.